Hi everyone, bringing you a video today talking a little bit about British plastic Insignia, which was produced during the Second World War. What has inspired this is a comment left on the April Fool's video I did looking at 13 Commando, the made-up unit I came up with for that. And worn on the Commando berry in that video was a plastic Royal Army Service Corps cap badge. This one here. These are very real. It's not part of the fool, which was what was assumed. These are very real and were produced during the Second World War. And we're going to just have an introductory run through the history of these today. I don't have very many of them, but a friend of mine, Alan, does have many more, and I'm hoping to do a video in the future looking at some of his collection in more detail, which will obviously run over a bit more of the different designs there were and so forth, and the different variations in the designs. But this is an interesting piece of wartime economy. In 1940, the genesis for this began in 1940 when it was realised that the use of non-ferrous metals was going to have to be curbed quite significantly, and cap badges formed a major part of that. Obviously, many of them are made of brass or are bimetal made of brass and white metal, and a great saving could be found if an alternative form of manufacturing cap badges could be devised. And in very late 1940, the idea was put to the War Office by a plastic manufacturer in London of producing injection moulded plastic cap badges. Contrary to popular belief, these aren't made of Bakelite. They're made of acetate cellulose, which is an early injection molded plastic. It's a thermoplastic, not a thermoset, which I believe Bakelite is a thermoset. And they are, as I say, an injection molded design. So dies were set up and they could be very rapidly produced through the injection molding process. It's similar. The cellulose acetate is a similar material to that used to make early film and is similarly flammable. And they will melt under temperature as well, being a thermoplastic. So not something you want to be, if you collect these, not something you want to be getting near any heat sources or anything like that. But as I say, the genesis came for this in late 1940. By late 1941, the decision had been made to manufacture plastic cap badges, and contracts were let for them and they began to be produced. At this time period, it had been decided that only core cap badges would be produced, because obviously these were the ones that were made in the largest number. And you can see three examples here. On my left, your right, I have the Royal Army Service Corps one. In the centre, I have the original Remy badge before the Horse and Lightning was introduced. And then on the right, my right there, your left, we have a Royal Engineers cap badge, and these are all made in the brown colour of plastic that was one of the ones initially introduced. So, as I say, it was an excellent idea and it worked. And in early 1942, it was decided to extend manufacture to rank insignia as well. So pips and crowns would also be made in plastic. And then in mid-1942, it was decided to extend the process even further and actually produce regimental cap badges. And we have an example of one of those here, and this is in silver tone. Silver tone were manufactured along with a gold tone as well, and then other colours would be introduced for other plastic badges used by civilians and other services. But this is for the Loyal Regiment, and the design exactly follows the Loyal Regiment cap badge design, but made in silver plastic rather than in metal. So from mid-1942, you had regimental cap badges being manufactured as well. And the idea worked very well. As I say, it did cut down non-ferrous metal use significantly, and many of the designs could be produced in plastic. The only exceptions that were made were for those badges with details that were too delicate to be effectively injection molded and still be strong enough to serve the purpose as a cap badge, obviously being worn in the field at certain times. So, as I say, quite an interesting development. This would go a bit further in badges being produced not only for the British Army, but the RAF also introduced cap badges in a black plastic, both other ranks and officers. And very late in the war, the Royal Marines would introduce black or very, very dark blue collar badges and cap badges for use, obviously, in place of the brass or gilding metal badges that other ranks wore at the time. Plastic badges continued to be used immediate post-war. Obviously, a great time of austerity for Britain, more so even than the war years in some regards. And there are plenty of photographs from the very late 40s showing plastic badges still being worn. The major contracts were let in 1946, and then there was a reversion back to metal insignia from this point, with one exception. The King's Royal Rifle Corps continued to contract for plastic badges, and they wore obviously the cross surmounted by a crown in black plastic right the way through the 50s until they were made part of the Rifle Brigade. So one exception there to the sort of return to metal insignia. And that's basically the brief overview I wanted to do of plastic insignia. One thing that's interesting to note is that this plastic is not, some badges, depending on how they're stored, so it's not as stable as some modern plastics. And the REMI badge we looked at earlier shows some of the examples of the wear and tear that can happen to these, or the damage that can happen given different exposure to different climates and things. You can see it's bowed, it's warped out there quite severely. And on the back, I don't know if you'll be able to see there's sort of a crystalline deposit on the back. These early plastics aren't quite as stable as more modern plastics, and so don't stand up to being left in less than ideal conditions very well. You'll still find many of them in excellent condition. I mean, this Royal Engineers example is a very nice example there. You can see there's no damage or anything to that, there's no warping. It's obviously been kept in much better environmental conditions. Okay, so I've got the badges here in close-up so we can have a look at them in a bit more detail. And we'll start off here with the Royal Engineers example, and you can see there the scroll and everything, the motto, and the Royal Engineers at the bottom there. And if we turn this over, you can see the maker there, quite nicely stamped on there, and you can see how the lugs are worked into the plastic there. You can see the other end of them, how they're moulded in. This is the REMI badge here, you can see, and you can better see the damage to this here. You can see the sort of crystalline formation on the back, and obviously we've lost one of the lugs, but you can see how the end of the lug is bent over there with two little prongs, and now it's cast into the plastic there. And then we have here the Royal Army Service Corps example. If we turn this over, again we can see the maker stamped at the bottom there, and again the lugs on this, you can see there how they're attached. And then finally the Loyals cap badge, which you can see there. We turn this over, I don't believe there's a maker's mark on this, but you can see a different method of attaching the clips on the back there is they just run through two slots cast into the back, or one piece of brass just runs through two slots cast into the back of the badge there, and are then bent over. So there it is, and you can see some of the mould lines and things there from where it's been moulded. So there we are, that's just a close-up look at the badges so you can see a bit more of the detail. That's basically it. So if you enjoy this sort of content, if you enjoy these videos looking at British militaria and so forth, then please do consider subscribing. Obviously, if you've already subscribed or you're newly subscribing, make sure you've hit the notification button down the bottom there, which will notify you when I upload future videos. There's also a Facebook and an Instagram page, which obviously I upload sneak peeks of upcoming videos on there, and various other things, of photographs which I can't slot into YouTube videos and so forth, of former reenactment events and things, and current reenactment events. So if you're interested to see more of that sort of thing, then please do consider following me over there on one of those two sites. But that's it for now. That's what I wanted to cover in the video. So until next time, bye for now.